for Football at 4 with Geoff Mosher, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast.
I love coaching this football team. I love coaching those players in there.
Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
It is Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Geoff Mosher's with us today. The Inside the Birds podcast dropped this morning at 6 a.m. Make sure you check that out. It's brought to you by PlaySugarHouse.com. Sign up now. They'll match your first deposit up to $250. Go to PlaySugarHouse.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 or older to play. All right, game day tomorrow, so we have a lot of injury news to update you on as we get ready for the Eagles and the Giants. And, of course, that's tomorrow night right here on 97.3 ESPN. Moshe, what's going on, my man? How are you?
Well, I'm healthy, so that's good. I hope you guys are healthy.
Are you?
You might be the only people healthy talking about the Eagles.
Are you ready for to play right guard tomorrow night? Apparently, that's a spot that could be available. Jamal Brown released today. I know that's not the biggest of them all, but we kind of went down that road because it might be the most interesting because Brown's out. He wasn't going to play. You got Peterson said we got a lot of options there, and he mentioned Herbig. So my guess has been Opetta's going to play left. They're going to move Herbig over to right. What do you see tomorrow night there?
Yeah, I think that seems like the most realistic option right now. I don't see what else they can do, what they've got, unless they want to play Jack Driscoll at right guard, which is not something I believe they want to do. They've liked how he's looked at right tackle. I think, down the road, if he can put some strength on, they project him to be one of those athletic right guards who can do a lot of pulling and trapping, but as of now, he's best to tackle. That's where he's practiced. So that really doesn't leave him with a lot of options. And I do think that probably what you're going to see is Sua Opetta at left guard and Nate Herbig at right guard. Opetta was mostly a tackle, I believe, at Weber State, I should say. But he did play the left side there. So, they always like to try to put guys where they are most comfortable. And if they're going to play Opetta, he's played more so on the left side and has practiced a lot at guard on the left side.
Lane Johnson looks like he is on track to play. Is that the indication you're getting?
Well, Doug certainly seemed to indicate that he was going to play. I think the question is, one, does he make it through the pregame warmups? I'm sure he's going to have to test it out. That was the issue that he was having before he went and gave himself some rest. He was playing in those games and coming out. They were saying that the ankle was difficult to get loose and get warm. So he's going to be able to have to do that, test it in the pregame, see how it is. He's given it, about 10 days of rest by that point, and then hope that while he's playing, it loosens up there and he's able to make it through. I certainly think that just because he may start the game is not a cure-all. You have to actually see if he can make it through the game.
Geoff, obviously the news of Desean Jackson is big because him coming back certainly can help that offense out. So it looks like he'll play, and you're not going to get Alshon Jeffrey. But how much does getting Jackson back help, and how much do you – I know he was kind of close to the vest, but if he's back, does that mean he's back at full tilt?
You would hope so, Mike. I mean, I'm not sure where his mindset is right now with the hamstring. I think a lot of people felt in the building that he could have played this past Sunday. He didn't. He's supposed to play Thursday. We'll see. I expect mostly that he'll play, but I'll attach the same label to him as with Lane Johnson. Can they get through a full game? I mean, you look at Desean Jackson's career here since coming back over the last 2 years. Last year he tried to come back from the groin or core muscle injury, caught a ball, played a couple of snaps, and then was out for the rest of the game and the rest of the year. So, again, is Desean going to go out there and give it a shot? It looks like it. But with a hamstring and with him and his age, you're hoping that he can make it through the game. And I wonder if it's a case where Doug says, kind of like the first two games, right, or the game against Washington, where he's not even going to push Desean to the metal. Maybe he's just going to try to get him out there for a few snaps, but mostly go with a rotation or a receiver combination of Travis Fulgham, Greg Ward, Arthego Whiteside in certain situations, and John Hightower in certain situations.
How should we view this Alshon situation? You have the PUP list problem, the roster spot issue. Hill was released. People were questioning, what was the mindset with a move like that? Then it was illness on the practice report. Then it was illness in foot. Now it's a calf. How should we view this?
You should view this. That's a good question, Hunter. I'll just say this. If you want to view it skeptically, I think you're fair to view it skeptically, right? You're bringing up some good points. He's on the injury report for, initially for the foot, then it's an illness, then it's a foot in the illness, now it's a calf. The team thought he was going to be ready by now, clearly, because they didn't put him on, start him off on the list, the PUP or anything like that. They thought he was going to be ready. He's clearly not been. He's got these different things going on. His name has come up in trade reports. He's got a high-paid contract. I'm sure that Alshon Jeffrey doesn't want to hurt himself any further or jeopardize anything because he's got this money coming to him and he faces an uncertain future. So you put that all together, and whatever skepticism you want to view it through, a skeptical lens you want to view it through, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, it is a whole weird situation because there's a lot of people who said, okay, if he didn't play, you could have used another roster spot. If you didn't want to play him because you didn't want him to get hurt, then why would you have activated him? I mean, there's a lot going on that seems like, well, they don't even want to play him now because they don't want him to get hurt if they want to try to trade him. But if he was available to play earlier, we would have played him. There's a lot of, blurred lines, it seems like, with the messaging with Desean, with Alshon, because it almost seems like now, well, we kind of backed into this Fulgham guy, so we don't even want to play Alshon Jeffrey anymore.
And that's exactly the point, is that, if fans were leaning on Alshon Jeffrey to come back and help save this depleted core, you really don't need it because you're getting a great Alshon Jeffrey impersonation right now from Travis Fulgham. Both of them can really – Alshon can only play the X. Travis we've seen move around a little bit, but mostly play X. Against the Giants, he's probably mostly going to play X unless they want to try to get him off of Bradbury, who's a pretty good corner a little bit, and move him around into the slot in certain situations. But the bottom line is, even a healthy Alshon Jeffrey right now, compared to where this team is going and what they're trying to accomplish, getting younger, putting their healthy, competitive, hungry guys on the field, Travis Fulgham's not coming out of the game for anybody right now. So Fulgham's going to play. Greg Ward's going to play. They're still going to try to get something, especially in the run blocking element out of J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. And John Hightower is dropping balls, but if he can get deep and catch the ball, he's giving you something to look for now and the future as well.
Yeah, I know it's there was a question today about, Desean Jackson and would he play ahead of Fulgham. I'm thinking those guys aren't playing the same positions, right? They would be complements to each other, not, hey, it's either Correct. Desean Jackson or Travis Fulgham being out on the field.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that question too, but there may have been some, sometimes you ask a question you already know the answer to because you're trying to get the head coach to expand a little bit and, maybe give a telltale answer in that kind of response. So, maybe that was the intention of the question, but clearly you're right. Desean, if he's going to play, is going to line up at the Z on the right side of Carson Wentz, and Travis Fulgham is going to line up at the X. And maybe you can see some of those guys, again, move into the slot, but most of the time, though, they can be on the field at the same time.
What can we expect out of tight end number one, Richard Rodgers? I would assume it's not going to be pretty heavy 12 personnel with him and Kroom.
Yeah, I think that's a good assumption. You might see – we'll have to wait and see what they do going forward with the roster. Maybe you'll see Hakeem
Butler.
Why can't I ever remember his last name?
Butler,
thank you. Hakeem Butler may get a little bit of a shot, but I do think they're going to be more – this is probably the healthiest they've been at wide receiver in quite a while, and not just because Desean might be back, but also because – Quez Watkins has been up, and you've had Fulgham, you've had Ward, you have Arcega-Whiteside, you have a Hightower. So to me, this is going to be an 11 personnel type of offense. And without Miles Sanders, you wonder if you're going to see a lot of no running back, empty backfield, kind of 10 personnel type offense. Is that right? One running back. What is your just a whole lot of spread it out and get the ball out of Carson's hands type of offense.
Yeah, by the way, the last time the Eagles played the Giants, Boston Scott had a really good game. 8 catches in that game. He scored 3 touchdowns in that game. They ran the ball with him, I think, like 15 times. So maybe Doug has a feel of, hey, let's use Boston Scott in a similar way than the last time they really lost Sanders in that game against the Giants last year. Because I don't anticipate them running the ball a whole heck of a lot tomorrow night. Do you?
No, I don't. The Giants do have some pretty good interior run defenders, and Dalvin Tomlinson, and they got the guy that they brought over from the Jets, Leonard Williams. They have a pretty good other defensive tackle whose name's escaping me right now. So they've been fairly decent at run defense this year, and the Eagles have just not been able to run the ball with all of their issues on the offensive line. And, their backup running backs, have not really acquitted themselves well. But you're right, Boston Scott, not only did he have that good game 2 against the Giants, his game 1 against the Giants, he had over 120 total yards. So he has seemed to be a kryptonite for them. But I'm concerned about saying that because he did that well last year, he can this year. It's a different offensive line. It's been they were better last year at throwing screens and doing quick hitters to the running backs, which you just have not seen them be able to pull off and execute this year. So, I feel like it's a difficult matchup without Miles Sanders, because you don't want to be behind the sticks all game and let that defense tee off on you, because the Giants defense is not nearly as good as Pittsburgh's or nearly as good as Baltimore's, but they can, throw some guys at you, and you don't have Zach Ertz and you don't have Miles Sanders. So you're not the same offense that was scoring a lot of points against Baltimore and Pittsburgh.
I was going to ask you, why do you think Boston Scott hasn't been more involved or had as successful as a role that maybe people thought?
There's a lot that goes into that. I always say sometimes with players like that who come into the league as fringe players and then have some success, the teams start to get to know you, what you do with those players. The red circle gets drawn around you a little more. He was the number 2 running back, but this has been the first time in Doug Peterson's head coaching tenure that there really has not been a lot of usage of the number 2 or number 3 running back. It's not an RBC anymore. It's really the Miles Sanders show. So the carries and the touches for both Boston Scott and Corey Clement have been few and far between. And I think most running backs, and especially those guys, because they're not starters, they probably are volume type guys that need a few carries here and there to get their rhythm going. And the Eagles offense just has not been in a good rhythm for most of the year. Even against Baltimore, for 75% of the game, they weren't in rhythm. They had -7 yards after their first 6 possessions. We look at the total points, but it's hard to say that they were a fully functional offense against the Ravens just because they scored 28 points. A lot of that came on late when they were passing. So I just think for the running backs, it's been very difficult for the Eagles because they've been behind the sticks a lot and trailing by double figures in the last 2 games.
I want to ask you a question about Miles Sanders. So, we talk about him as the 3-down back, and obviously you're seeing the skill is there. He's had a couple breakout runs over the last couple of weeks. But is he ready to be that 3-down back yet? You talk about the fatigue early on in the season, and I know the training camp stuff plays a role because, you don't have the same amount of time to get yourself prepared, and he was sitting on the sidelines and all. But you talk about the conditioning, and you heard him and Coach Doug Peterson speak about it, and the looming injuries and all that. Like, is he ready to be? I look at the second half stuff, not being able to get in the end zone yet then, and the fatigue. I just wonder, is it a lot for him right now to be that 3-down back?
It's a fair question. He has the skill set, right, to be the 3-down back. I think that is not the question. It's can he handle that role right now, the second year into his career, and kind of have to lose time for injuries and things like that. But I think let's focus on that, though. It's just his second year. I mean, think about the great running backs the Eagles have had who were 3-down running backs. Brian Westbrook wasn't even a 3-down running back until I want to say 2004. And by that was 3 years into his career. So that would be like next year for Miles Sanders. LaShawn McCoy, his second year, he was that kind of guy, but he had 1,000 yards that year, 1,080 yards, and he had about 600 receiving yards, and he played in 15 games, and he missed a couple of games. He only started 13. So he may have missed a game or two there. Miles Sanders was on pace for 1,600 yards, which is what LaShawn McCoy had his second year, 1,672 and 9. Miles Sanders was on pace for something like 1,612 Have you seen the breakout runs? But you're right in saying, well, can he handle that workload, the injuries that he's had, not just this year, or not just right now, I should say, but he was banged up a little bit last year, which is why Boston Scott had to play a prominent role. That remains to be seen. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but these 3-down guys who can catch and run tend to not be the biggest guys in the world. He's certainly giving you the explosive element that you would want from a 3-down back. I mean, imagine if he had caught that touchdown between the long run and the touchdown catch. But you're right. I mean, he fumbled and he dropped the touchdown. So there's a lot left to be proven for him. He's on the right trajectory. I can't answer whether he's going to stay healthy or not. Only time will tell in that. But he certainly has the skill set. But I think, in year 2, it is a lot to ask for a guy to do that.
All right, Geoff Mosher, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Getting guys back like Avonte Maddox, Duke Riley, who else in that mix am I missing is back? Marcus Epps, I guess.
Epps.
What does that bring? I mean, people are saying, okay, who cares? I mean, getting Maddox back, where do you see him fitting in? What does that mean for Mills? What does this do for Parks? I mean, there's a lot that kind of dominoes that fall, I think, because of Maddox. Riley and Epps, I don't know how much. I guess Riley gets I don't know. Singleton played a lot of snaps last week. I guess he played okay. I don't know if Riley kind of gets bumped out there. Epps, I don't know what his role becomes. But I think Maddox coming back is definitely an interesting domino.
Well, I do think Maddox coming back is an interesting domino. The domino already started to fall last week when they played Nickel Roby-Coleman as an outside corner opposite Darius Slay, which I thought was really interesting. And that enabled them to move Jalen Mills back to safety, even though they got Will Parks back. And I thought Mills did a fairly decent job in the amount of tape that I was able to watch on Mark Andrews. He was matched up against Mark Andrews in a lot of man situations. So now, again, you have another outside corner come back. And listen, maybe he's moonlighting as an outside corner. Avonte Maddox's future might still be better in the slot, but for right now, he's an outside corner and he's competent for them. And that allows them to keep Mills at safety and probably rotate him a little bit if they need to with Will Parks, who had to play a lot in his first game last week, although didn't do a whole lot. He did play, I think, 50% of the snaps, and maybe he can play a little more. But it gives you that nice kind of safety depth that you were looking for. You don't want to be playing Marcus Epps. You don't want to be playing Rudy Ford. You want your safeties to be Rodney McLeod, Will Parks, and Jalen Mills. And for now, it gives them the opportunity to keep that until, of course, the next 3 injuries happen, which is always the case. Linebacker, though, is a really interesting development because Alex Singleton, I think, has played decently enough to right now say that he is their best overall linebacker. So when you talk about this Giants game, when you're in nickel, which you'll probably be most of the time, are you going to play Alex Singleton and Duke Riley now that Riley's back, or are you going to play Alex Singleton and Nate Gary? And we all know how Nate Gary has performed this year. So I'm very curious to see how that rotation looks. And of course, when they do have 3 linebackers on the field, you would have to think it would be Singleton, Gary, and Duke Riley, unless they're so down on Gary that they give those snaps to Sean Bradley, who had to play last week and played okay as a middle linebacker in 3 linebacker sets with Duke Riley out. So that's really what I'm looking at on Thursday night. If there's a major change philosophically in what they're doing at linebacker.
Does Goddard have a shot to play?
I don't believe so. I thought I heard Doug mention that Goddard was not ready to come back.
He kind of left it a little open-ended. I mean, he did mention today when asked about Goddard and Rieger.
Goddard is on IR, correct? I can't even remember.
He says, I'm not going to put a timetable on either one of them, but I'll tell you they're both doing well and they're on schedule.
Yeah, was Goddard placed on IR? Refresh my memory.
Yes, he was, and he could, after this week, he would be able to be activated off the IR.
So then he would not be eligible to play on Thursday night.
Right.
Okay.
Right. I don't think he's eligible to play. And if he is, because if he's already missed 3, which I don't think he has, then they'd have to obviously activate him from IR and make a corresponding move. But he's not been part of practice this week, to my knowledge. So I don't believe Goddard can play this week.
Okay, sorry. The question, I thought the question was, do you plan on using them? It says, do you plan on to keep them out after the bye week? Okay, so the question was, do you plan on keeping them out again after the bye week? And he said, I'm not going to put a timetable. They're both doing well, and they're on schedule. Rieger was a part of that question, so you wonder if Rieger is closer to returning than maybe I guess the bye week is what, after the Dallas game?
The bye week is after the Dallas game. So they've got Giants, they've got Dallas, and then bye week and then Giants. Is that correct?
Yes. You got Giants tonight, tomorrow night, Sunday night football. So you got Thursday night football, Giants, Sunday night football, Dallas. Then there's a bye, and then you come right back and play the Giants again. So this is a very big 3-week stretch if you have any ideas of wanting to make the playoffs.
Yeah, and as it pertains to Jalen, as I reported on our pregame show a couple of weeks ago, he had his cast removed from his left thumb about 2 weeks earlier than expected, and he's doing a good job. He's been, again, a fast healer. I believe I was told he was going to start catching some balls soon, so he's obviously not going to play against the Giants. I think it's unrealistic. I won't slam the door fully, but unrealistic to think he'll play against Dallas. I think they'll give him that bye week, and then you start to look at the game after the bye week against the Giants as a logical kind of return game for him. But we'll see how it goes. I mean, maybe he just makes so much progress that they feel like they can get him on the field and make a difference.
Do you think
earlier than that?
Yeah. Do you think that we will see more of a Jalen Hurts package? Like, I'm okay. I didn't like the desperate, throw from Carson Wentz to Hurts back to Wentz kind of concept, but I feel maybe with that running game, we talk about the lack of Miles Sanders, maybe you can implement some sort of running game with Jalen Hurts.
First of all, I wouldn't say that desperate. That's one of the things they said to expect to see.
Yeah,
more teams throwing the ball twice in a play. Remember, they actually said that they were going to do that.
Yes. Yeah. By the way, Hunter, let me try to shoot you up with truth serum here, metaphorically speaking. You said you didn't like that play. Now, if that play had gone for 15 yards, would you have liked it?
I mean, it just smelled so desperate to me. It's like, wow, we can't do anything. Let's just throw the ball back and forth and see you know what I mean? It's like it felt like middle school football, that play to me.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand. It did kind of reek of a little bit of desperation there. Obviously, using Jalen Hurts in some of those situations, though, did kickstart the offense a little bit, or it's completely coincidental. I think that that question has to be answered, and we'll see. But I think the evolution of using him is to start to use him as a thrower. He had, one pass? I believe it was against
Pittsburgh.
Was it in the Pittsburgh game he threw a pass, or was it off an RPO? May have been the game, maybe in the San Francisco game. Either way, I think that's now the next step. We've seen him run the ball. We've seen him kind of play pitch and catch with Carson Wentz. We've seen him line up everywhere. I think the next step would be to see him throw the ball a little bit because we haven't seen a lot of that.
Yeah, I'm actually more surprised that they haven't done more of both of them throwing the ball back to each other. I mean, they actually said that. Hey, that's where this game is going. You're going to start seeing teams throw the ball twice on one play. Like, they actually came out and said that. So for them to only have done it one time, I'm mildly surprised. But I'm also mildly surprised at how little they've incorporated him so far. Now, Doug did indicate Monday that you might see them put more of him into their game plan.
Yeah, I tend to think that those kind of things, those kind of gadgets get incorporated when you're doing well as an offense and you don't want to get stale. You want to do, the Saints were a good offense, right? And then they brought the Taysom Hill element to it. I don't know that it's really easy to incorporate him in these, ways that we're talking about when you're just trying to get through a practice wondering who the heck is catching the ball, who the heck is blocking, You have to spend a lot of time in practice working on rhythm and timing, especially on a pitch and catch play like you had with Carson Wentz. And, I think, Doug's got about 10 things on his plate that he's trying to resolve. I get your point. Like, some of this stuff can help you when you're struggling. It can also backfire miserably, though, if not everybody is on the same page and you got a bunch of third and fourth stringers out there trying to execute some difficult timed up blocks and from not just the offensive line, but also the receivers and some intricate scheme work going on there.
All right, Jeff, big game tomorrow. I mean, obviously these two teams don't have Super Bowl aspirations, but the winner has put themselves in great position to win this division with 2 wins. Do you think the Eagles have enough to get it done? I mean, the Giants won last week, so they got a little bit of momentum going.
Yeah, they have enough to get it done. I'm really concerned when you lose Miles Sanders and Zach Ertz and you have all these other injuries. I keep calling it net negative. Yeah, you're welcome back Desean Jackson and you welcome back Avonte Maddox. That's two important players for you. But, you're now playing without Malik Jackson, without Zach Ertz, and without Miles Sanders. So you're not the same team from the last 2 weeks. People, I think, you bring this up all the time, Mike, right? Week to week, you're a different team. And so I look at this Giants game and I think, I feel like it's a trap for fans. Fans think that this is finally a winnable game and that the Eagles always beat the Giants. And I can't help but think of the law of averages. They've beaten them, I think, 7 straight times. Doug is 6-0 in Thursday night games. That stuff isn't going to continue forever. And the Giants do have a little bit of momentum coming off a win, their first win. So, I believe on the podcast, I picked the Giants to win. I don't like this situation here for the Eagles in this game.
That would be a monumental, it would be an overreaction Friday of epic proportions, would it not?
Well, the reaction, yes, but it wouldn't be a monumental upset. I mean, they're only three point favorites.
Not an upset. Just I think a lot of people are kind of saying, all right, we got Desean Jackson back. We're starting to get healthy. Dallas is really bad. You got this 3-game little, 3 winnable games coming up here. I think everybody's kind of looking at this 3-game stretch. Then they got that miserable 5-game stretch, and then you have Dallas and Washington. If you can figure out a way to win the 5 division games, that might be just enough in this 2020 COVID year. What might be just what you need.
Wouldn't that be the icing on the cake?
6, 9, and 1. All right, Geoff Mosher, the Inside the Birds podcast. It dropped this morning. A new one drops Friday morning at 6. And, of course, tomorrow, it's the Inside the Birds pregame show starts at 5. Check that out. And, of course, Geoff Mosher, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Thanks, Geoff.
You got it, guys.
And Jeff's back on Friday to recap the Eagles and the Giants. We'll get his take on everything. He's picking the Giants to win the game.
Ooh, that stinks.